Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a pretty big art haul to share with you. So I hope you're excited for me to kind of go through some things that I have added to my collection recently and do a little bit of swatching of each of them so you get a general overview of what I have. So first off, we have some metallic watercolors. These used to be branded as the Fine Tech watercolors, and I believe they are now Coolero. As far as I understand, they are the same exact watercolors, and we have this beautiful set of sort of white pearls, silvers, greens, and blues. And I have never had really pigmented metallic watercolors before, so I'm pretty excited about using these, and I've only really swatched these and haven't played too much with them yet, but I'm really excited for all the possibilities for adding little details to watercolor pieces and other artwork and things like that. It really is going to be best for originals, not prints, unfortunately, but that's the kind of thing. It's just a fun little added bonus to a particular piece and illustration, and I'm excited to use these possibly for some upcoming Animal Artist Collective pieces, so it makes the original that much more special, I guess. And I also used to have a tier on my Patreon where I had basically embellished prints or originals going out to a higher tier, and I want to eventually open up something like that again, and I would love to use some of these metallics on those pieces for those patrons, so I'm pretty excited about using these. Here's a last look at the swatches. I love that green, it's so pretty, so I'm excited to use these. And next up, we have some chalk markers, and I have a few ideas for videos for these. In particular, I want to use them for just making fun labels for organization in my studio. I know some people have used these in art-related videos to create art either on blackboards or glass and things like that, and I honestly see these more as a just sort of useful product. I really like using chalk labels or chalkboard labels, and I do have chalk paint, and I like organizing my art supplies and other things using those kinds of labels. And white is not always the most fun to use, and I love that this set has quite a few greens. It has like 3 solid greens, and I'm excited to use these and show you a little bit about how I use them for both organization as well as some ideas for artist alleys where you use like a chalkboard or something. It could be for artist alleys, it could be for fairs, anywhere that you want to have your prices or other information out on display in a really pretty way. And chalkboards have been pretty popular recently, kind of coming back into popularity, and I am excited with all these colors that I can basically make a full illustration on a chalkboard and display my prices and other fun things like that. So let me know if you're excited about me doing a video using these chalk markers. I feel like they're a little bit of an interesting art supply, and I would love to kind of delve in a little bit more. And this set in particular comes with 6 extra metallic chalk pens, and I'm pretty excited about kind of testing them out and seeing how well they work for me. Next up, we have a couple new products, brand new products from the company Color It, and they did send me both this watercolor paper and this watercolor brush set, and I'm really excited to get into these a little bit more in an upcoming video, probably pretty soon, but they have a really wide range of these beautiful colors, and fun fact, these are actually refillable, which I haven't seen before. So I am excited to test these out, and they sent me this pad of watercolor paper, and I honestly didn't have really high hopes for it, coming from a company that mostly does coloring books and things like that. I just wasn't sure how this was gonna kind of stack up against other watercolor papers that I've used. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Arteza watercolor paper, but this watercolor paper is actually really close to the Canson XL, which is the type I use almost all the time on my channel and for different projects here and there when I'm not going for a real premium watercolor painting, where I am gonna want something that is more cotton paper based or something like that. This paper is actually super nice, and I'm really excited to use it a little bit more, and I will go a little bit more into detail about all of these brush pens and the paper in an upcoming video like I mentioned. But I am testing these out. There's some really beautiful vibrant colors. It doesn't come with a water brush, which I feel like could be a really nice addition to the set overall, since these are water-based markers, but the brush tips are really soft, and I'm excited to use them in a few different ways and talk a little bit about art as therapy versus art therapy. And I'm excited to get that video out to you guys because I think it'll have some really good information, and I'll just get to do some sort of art as therapy activities in a coloring book and using these pens in more of kind of a relaxed art form to sort of decompress and relax a bit more and still be able to do creative things and art, but not have it be as serious as a lot of my illustrations that I do on a more regular basis. So more like art for me, which I'm excited about and I'm excited to share with you. Next up, we have a few products from Arteza, and I was pretty excited that they were offering to send me both these colored pencils and a couple other things that you're going to see after this. So these are the Expert Premium colored pencils that, as far as I understand, are pretty comparable to the Prismacolor Premier color pencils, which is really the only other colored pencil brand I've used. And I am excited to try these out. There are 72 colors, which is really exciting. It's a really nice large set. And so far I am pretty excited after just swatching them. I do show you here that I rearrange all the colors because them coming to me didn't make a lot of sense for how the colors were arranged. So I actually took probably over an hour to just come up with a way to organize them that made sense for me. And then once I had them organized, I filled out my swatch chart here and just kind of go in order and show you just a quick overview of the colored pencils and how they work. My first impressions are that they are pretty similar to Prismacolor in the sense of the color payout and sort of pigment that you get down. They aren't as soft, and again, I think Prismacolor has changed their formula in recent years, and I have an older set, and so I think even now Prismacolor might be a little bit different, so I'm not quite sure, but I remember them being very creamy and soft, and these are a little bit harder. But to be honest, I actually kind of like that. I feel like I go through my Prismacolors really quickly because they just sort of melt on the paper almost. I was really interested in trying these colored pencils because not only are they affordable, but there's a really large range of colors, and I don't typically use colored pencils completely for an illustration. I really like using them for details and specifically adding texture and shadows and a few added elements and depth to my watercolor paintings, my marker paintings or drawings, and I really like colored pencils as a really versatile art product that is basically that added mixed media element that I feel like adds a lot of depth and a lot of character to a drawing or painting. Let me know down below if you're interested in me creating some artwork that is just colored pencil, but for now my plan is to use them as a little bit of a detail added to my paintings. And speaking of paintings, next up we have the Arteza Gouache. And I've been really excited to try these because I've heard fairly good things from quite a few artists that I really respect here on YouTube about how great these are, especially for a starting set, but they aren't low quality. They're pretty comparable with a sort of mid student grade or even high student grade. And so I'm pretty excited to try them because I honestly have tried to use gouache a few times and have always gotten really frustrated with it. I feel like, especially the gouache that is not the acrylic gouache, that's basically acrylic paint. This is basically an opaque watercolor, and I get really frustrated because I feel like I still don't quite understand how to layer it correctly, and I'll use too much water, and I need a good solid set that has a wide range of colors so I don't have to mix as much and can just practice with the medium and understand how to add in enough water and how to correctly layer on the page, because it reactivates with water, similar to watercolor on the palette, but it also reactivates on the paper. And so, like I would typically use watercolor where I would layer lots of layers, once they dry, they will almost always layer just right on top of each other. If you try to layer gouache, especially if you're not doing it correctly, you will actually disturb the layers underneath and it can really turn into just a muddy mess. And so I'd really like to practice and dedicate some time to learning this medium because I have gotten so frustrated with it. And I am really excited to play with this affordable set that is still fairly high quality. Again, that's mostly going off of other reviews I've seen from artists that I really do respect here on YouTube. Make sure to search for some of their videos. And I really wanted to get my hands on these and play around, and I would really love to create some gouache paintings that I really like, just because I love gouache paintings when they're done right. I just love the look of them. They're so velvety, and this beautiful matte that you get at the end on the surface is great for recreating prints of, and really I want to dive in and understand this medium more. So I'm really excited for getting to try these products out and play around with them. Here's a shot of the swatch card at the end, and you can see kind of how opaque some of them are, and I will go more into that more or less when I play around with them even more for an illustration in the future. Now, on top of these two Arteza products, I also got sent the 72 set of their watercolor pencils. And if you've seen some of my videos in the past, well, I guess one video in particular, I haven't used watercolor pencils a whole lot. I also have the Prismacolor watercolor pencils, and so that is something I have that's somewhat comparable, but still don't quite know how to use these. I mean, I like watercolors and I like colored pencils, so I keep thinking, sure, I'll just merge the two and this should be a really fun product to use. And I think I just need to take the time and practice with them a little bit more. Like I mentioned, I do have a video here on my channel of me trying to follow a tutorial by Lindsay the Frugal Crafter. I'll link that up above if you're interested in checking that out. I like to think it's pretty funny and entertaining, so hopefully you enjoy that. But I wanted to try out a different set, a different brand, and really have a nice wide range of colors to play with as I'm learning this medium. Since mixing them can be a little bit complicated, I just really wanted to have a nice large set to play with. And again, I really want to use these similar to the colored pencils, where I can add texture and add a little bit here and there as a sort of top layer on top of certain pieces. But the great thing about watercolor pencils is you add some water and you can really smooth it out. And as far as I can tell, I didn't get super smooth color payoff when I did add water, and I think honestly that's more user error, and I didn't have the greatest water control, and I'm still learning this medium. So I am so grateful to Arteza for sending me these products to play with and show you, and I'm hoping that I can use these two products, the gouache and these watercolor pencils, as a sort of means to take you along with me as I learn these mediums. A lot of my other videos where I'm talking about watercolor and some other products, possibly markers, I think I tend to come from more of a expert position, which I'm even a little apprehensive to use that term, but I think from a point of I've used this enough, I can show you some tips I have or show you how I use them. And with these, I'm a lot more apprehensive about showing you the process just because I feel very new to them. But I think that there can really be some value there in coming alongside me and learning with me and learning from someone who might be closer to your level with using art supplies, especially since I do have the background in art and understanding, basic color theory and some of these other things. I can kind of jump in and show you how and why I'm approaching using these mediums the way I do, but we can also all learn together. So here we have the final swatch sheet. As I mentioned, it's not the most even coverage, and I think as I practice with them, I will get better at creating a more even flow of the color. But as far as I could tell, I really enjoyed how much and how quickly the pigment did sort of melt on and outward on the paper, and that is what you're looking for from watercolor pencils. Next up, I have a product that I'm pretty excited about. I've wanted a glass dip pen for a little while, ever since my Inktober pieces, and I have a whole lot of videos talking about Inktober. If you're interested, I can have a playlist up above of all of those. But I used a metal nib dip pen and this exact ink from Higgins to line 31 illustrations for Inktober, and I realized there were a variety of issues I had with the metal nibs. Working on the watercolor paper, especially cold press where there's more texture, it would sort of skip and I would have some ink splatter, and I ended up, because of that and feeling like I needed to be really precise, I would hold the pen way too tight and was starting to actually give myself cramps in my hand and my arm, and partway through I actually needed to wrap my arm because I was hurting myself a little bit by using that. And so I'm excited to play around with this ink pen and show you more of that in the future. Next up, we have a coloring book that was so graciously sent to me, and this is a watercolor coloring book which I have never seen before, and there is beautiful quotes and illustrations in a sort of soft gray, and I've just sort of flipped through here. I've kind of painted some things here and there just to kind of practice, but I have a video coming up where I think I'm going to be using those brush pens from Color It to play around in this coloring book and really have some self-care time and talk a little bit more about art and art therapy and art as therapy, like I mentioned. And these are just beautiful illustrations, and I'm really excited to jump in and use this as more of an art for me kind of product. And last but not least, I have this brand new watercolor set from Jane Davenport. These are the Brights, which I think all of these colors are really gorgeous. The swatch chart is not watercolor paper, so those swatches are only so helpful, and I do end up showing you a swatch chart, how I typically make them. These are really fun watercolors. They're not as high quality as some of my professional grade ones, but again, I think this is going to be a really fun watercolor set to play around with. The colors are super vibrant and really fun to play with, and I'm excited that there isn't a white or a black since I really don't use those in watercolor sets, and there's a really lovely array of greens and blues, as well as quite a few purples, which if you know me, I complain about watercolor sets having a lack of really good purples, so I'm really excited to play around with this set and again have it be more of a fun set for me to play with and enjoy and kind of just do more fun art for me. And that's the end. I know this was a lot. This was a pretty long video. I hope you enjoyed me kind of quickly going through and swatching a lot of these art supplies. Let me know down below what you're most interested in seeing me play with, whether it's a review or just use in an illustration in general. But with that, I hope you have a creatively fulfilled day, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!